So, Kate, can you talk about growing up in New Zealand, what it's like?
Growing up in New Zealand is very free. The kids have a lot more freedom than kids in other countries.
Uh-huh.
We can, like, obviously we go to school from 5 years old, and until 16 years old you must go to school. But when we come home from school, there's our parents there. They're very loving, caring in general, that is.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of lawn, a lot of scenery, landscape that we can run around on.
Okay. What kind of things did you do when you were little? Like games or
Sports.
sports? Okay.
Sports.
What sports?
Started off with ballet and got really bored with ballet, but went to gymnastics, and that was my main sport when I was growing up.
Oh, wow, you were a gymnast.
Gymnast, yes.
What events did you do?
Events. Well, you have levels, competition levels. So you start from level 3, and I went up to level 7. And next level would have been very competitive. It's called Junior Elite. So had I continued, I would have probably stopped school and concentrated on gymnastics only.
When you were younger, was your dream to go to the Olympics?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh. So do you ever, because you're still very young, do you ever practice gymnastics still?
Yes, I do actually at the university that I go to. I joined a club, which is not gymnastics, but it's kind of dance, and I can still do some of the stuff I used to be able to do.
Wow. Now, as you get older, have you ever thought about becoming a coach?
Uh, yes, I did think about it, but it's not a reality anymore. I've forgotten so many things already.
Okay.
Just teaching for fun.
So, Kate, if somebody had a month to spend in New Zealand, where do you recommend they go, and what do you recommend they do?
Well, most often you'll fly into Auckland Airport. So you can start off in Auckland, which is a nice big city. However, the most important thing about New Zealand is the smaller countryside parts of New Zealand. So you should go up to the north, like further north than Auckland, go to the beautiful beaches, and you can go all the way up to a place called Cape Reinga, which is the very top of New Zealand. And from there you can see the Pacific Ocean.
Oh, sounds
And
nice.
yeah, it's very beautiful.
Okay, and how long do you recommend someone stay there?
Just stay there just for only a couple of days, maybe a week maximum at the top of New Zealand. Just get to see some beaches and the top of the North Island, Cape Reinga. And then travel down the island by car, or just hire a car or a camper van.
Mm-hmm.
You can just sleep in the camper van and the camping grounds. And it's cheap, and it's a lot more fun with your friends.
Wow, it sounds like a good time. So when you go camping, when you move down the islands, the North Island or South Island, what do you recommend that they see or do?
Well, definitely go to the national park. It's called Tongariro National Park, and it is where the Lord of the Rings was filmed.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, and I'm sure if you've seen that movie, you know the beautiful scenery that was there.
Wow, sounds like pretty
It's
good.
really amazing.
Good deal. So besides Auckland, are there any other cities that people should see?
Then you can go down to Wellington, the capital city, and you can just see the museum and the harbour, and just the museums is the main thing. Yeah.
Okay, well, sounds like a nice country to visit. I would definitely like to go. Hello, can you say your name, please?
My name is Kate.
Okay, Kate. And where are you from?
I'm from New Zealand.
Okay, and so are you from Auckland?
No, I'm from Wellington, the capital city.
Oh, really? Wellington's the capital.
That is.
Is it in the North Island or the South Island?
It's at the bottom of the North Island.
Okay. What's Wellington like?
Wellington it's a very beautiful city. It's got the center is obviously the township with a few tall buildings, and Then we have the harbour, which is very beautiful, especially at night time. See the city lights reflecting on the harbour.
Mm.
And then on the outside, we have all the suburbs where everybody lives.
Okay.
Yeah.
How is Wellington different than Auckland or Christchurch?
So first of all, Auckland is much bigger. It's the biggest city in New Zealand, and the city itself in the very center, downtown center, um, the buildings are much taller and much more hectic. Traffic is hectic every day going to work. But Wellington is much more calmer. However, in Christchurch, it's just flat,
Okay.
completely flat. Because Wellington's very hilly, many
Okay.
hills.
Now, is it a cheap place to live or is it expensive?
Reasonably cheap. Compared with Auckland, it's much cheaper.
Okay. Like, how much do things cost? Like, in New Zealand dollars, how much is a bus ride and
A
a loaf
bus
of
ride
bread? And
from home to town would be $1.50 New Zealand dollars.
okay, and how much is a loaf of bread?
A loaf of bread, $2 to $3.
Okay. What's the best thing about your city?
Best thing about my city is, strangely enough, the wind.
The wind.
It's known for its wind.
Wow, how is that a good thing?
How's that a good thing? Just the cool breeze,
Oh,
especially
okay.
in summertime, and it gets hot, and you just feel this nice, cool, gentle breeze.
Oh, that must be nice.
Although it can get quite strong.
Oh, okay. And what's the worst thing about your city?
Worst thing about my city would be the trains.
Oh,
They're
okay.
so inconvenient, and they don't cost so much, but they're just really inconvenient.
Oh, yeah.
And the
Well,
buses aren't so good either.
uh, well, it's kind of the same in my country.
Yeah.
So, Trey, can you introduce yourself? Where are you from?
Hello, everyone. My name is Trey Goodman. I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I was originally born in St. Louis, Missouri, but I spent most of my life in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and in Japan.
Wow. Well, what's your city like back home, Tulsa?
Tulsa is an amazing city. We have about 500,000 people, I think. Don't hold me to it. There's a lot of culture. Many people from various parts of the world who either immigrated to Oklahoma or their parents immigrated and therefore they're first generation. So we have lots of foods from all over the world. Um, Oklahoma used to be a part of the Mexican states, so we have a very strong Mexican heritage that still exists. Going into food, of course, we have food that's similar to northern Mexico, but we also have ribs, which are probably the best you'll ever find in the United States.
The ribs.
The ribs,
Why are the ribs so good?
because they're so juicy and soft, you don't need teeth to eat the beef.
Wow, that's pretty good. So, when you say ribs, is that beef? So it's beef ribs.
Beef ribs, we also have pork spare ribs, pretty much anything.
Wow, that's cool. What's the
Anything you
nightlife
find.
like in Tulsa?
Nightlife. I haven't been back in many years, but when I grew up there, I remember there being many clubs in the area. Uh, Majority of the adults are single, so everyone's looking for a spouse in the area. I grew up playing music, so I would visit nightclubs and bars to play in bands when I was underage. Uh, so I think people really found ways to enjoy themselves.
Okay. So you say you were in a band or you played an instrument. What did you play?
Yes, I'm a drummer. I've played drums ever since I was in junior high, and I love music, so I've also played violin, and I sang in a church choir ever since I was a little baby, growing up until university.
What would you say is the best thing about Tulsa?
The best thing about Tulsa, I would say, is the atmosphere. Once you go, people are so nice. They'll invite you in to anything that they're doing. It's just an easy town to fit in. It's a large city, but it's not too large. It still has a small town atmosphere,
Mm.
like probably most middle-sized cities in the United States.
Is there anything that's bad about Tulsa?
Well, we do have our share of violent crime. We have a river that's pretty much polluted. It would be nice if it were a clean river so we could swim in it. Um, I would say that's about it as far as what I can remember.
It's okay. That sounds like two big enough problems right there.
Yeah, pollution and crime.
Thanks, Trey. So Trey, can you talk about American high school? What was high school like for you? What is American high school like?
It's a very good question. When one says an American high school, to some people, maybe movies that depict the high school life come to mind. But the most thing I would like people to keep in mind is that depending on the school district, the state, the area of the state in which you live, the high school you go to can vary extremely. There are many poor schools in poor districts, and there are very rich schools, similar to the Beverly Hills 90210 television show. That's quite popular around the world. I was fortunate to go to a high school that was a public school under a magnet program. And the idea was that you have a test to get in to the school. You have to excel academically. And the school would try to suck in or attract students from all over the state. Students that excelled in math and sciences, sports, English, literature, foreign languages, and tried to bring those students together. Not only that, the idea of the school was to create an atmosphere that was biologically diverse. That just sounds better than racially diverse.
Yeah.
So we had students of various socioeconomic backgrounds, meaning we had students of various races, even though I don't believe race to exist. But sociologically speaking, we had students of various races. At the school, you could take classes from Italian to classical English. Um, Many of our teachers had PhDs, so it was just a great academic atmosphere to be in. And then we had a lot of fun on top of that. The first 2 years I went there, we had an open campus, which meant that during lunch we were able to get in our cars, because we all drive to school, get in our cars and drive home or drive to a friend's house or drive to a restaurant during our lunch period. So we didn't have to stay at school for lunch. We were completely free. And the school was very liberal. So the teachers had a very open idea of how students learn, and they wanted to make sure that we were learning in a way that was best for us. Now that doesn't mean they were not strict on us. When we did something bad, when we were in trouble, they let us know. But still, many of our teachers were very open, and they would give us hugs if we needed hugs.
Your
Um, I,
teachers would give you hugs.
yes, I know some schools,
Oh man.
many teachers would want to keep that professional distance. But I think when you're working with children, always keep in mind that they are young adults, and uh, they need to be taught a good model to fit within society. And I think one of those models is reaching out to others when they are in trouble. Sometimes, a student may need a hug, be it your friend or be it a teacher. So I really enjoyed getting hugs from my principal. So I always gave her a hug almost every morning.
Wow, it's a lot different than my high school. So Trey, you are a drummer.
Yes, I am indeed. And for all the negative baggage that comes along with that term, yes, I am a drummer.
Wait. So you say that there's negative
Uh,
terms that go with being a drummer?
well, sometimes when people hear, oh, they're a musician, oh, we better watch out for them. Yeah, it's true.
Okay. Well, what kind of drums do you play?
I grew up playing in punk bands, mostly because those were the only bands scouting for drummers uh, at the time. However, what I enjoy playing is funk, jazz, blues, and salsa, specifically Cuban salsa.
Okay. Now, so for the different types of music that you play, do you always use the drumsticks or do you sometimes just use your hands?
When I play on a drum set, I either use drumsticks or a bundle of sticks that are really small called hot rods, or brushes. Usually, if I'm doing a jazz piece or a very soft acoustic set, I'll use brushes. If I'm using other percussive instruments, for example, a djembe, then of course I'll use my hands.
What's a djembe?
Djembe is a large drum that comes from West Africa, and you play with your hands using various African polyrhythms. And lately, a lot of Western drummers have picked up the drum and have fused Western rhythms along with African and Latin polyrhythms. So it's a very fun but very difficult instrument to play.
What's what do you prefer, using the sticks or the hot rods or using your hands?
Again, it depends on the music that I'm playing. I enjoy playing in general.
Hmm.
My preference would be playing the drum set with the sticks, just because I really love um, the more rocky uh, fusion type jazz, the more avant-garde out there type stuff. And I also like salsa, which usually, you have your clave, which is a little wood-like block, and your cowbell, and you also have timbales, which are two drums that you hit on.
When you're playing the drums, do you ever lose a drumstick?
I have in the past, yes. I notice the questions you're asking are very, very embarrassing for a drummer to answer. But yes, sometimes I've thrown them into the audience, usually on purpose. But occasionally, a drummer will lose a drumstick. So you usually have a pouch that you'll put either next to your hi-hat, which are two cymbals that you open and close with your foot, or next to a floor tom, which is a large drum that sits on the ground. So you have extra sticks that you can grab when you need them.
Oh, sounds cool.
Very cool.
So Trey, you said when you were younger, you took many family car trips.
Oh, yes. You could say I grew up in the car. We take road trips from Oklahoma, state of Oklahoma, to say Florida or Georgia, Mississippi. Um, we'd even drive up north to New York, and I've taken road trips to Colorado and Seattle, Washington. Inside the car, when I'm with my brothers and my sisters, sometimes we'd fight, but most of the time we'd play various games. For example, we'd count the license plates,
So
or we
license plates are the like ID on the back of a
right,
car.
IDs on the back of the car, and depending on the state, the license plate changes. So we
Ah.
try to see how many states we could count, and whoever got the most states by the end of the trip, of course, would win. We do other things. For example, my parents always made sure that we visited historical sites to learn about the local culture of the area, and we'd also try the local foods that
Hmm.
existed. So whenever we drive to the south, for example, if we drove through Louisiana, we'd try Cajun food, which is full of gumbo, which is another word for okra, and rice and crayfish, which is sort of like a lobster
Hmm.
type
Sounds good.
shellfish. Oh, very
Is
good.
it
And
spicy?
spicy. Oh, very spicy. Very, very spicy. So we had a lot of fun times in the car.
Yeah. So did you have some bad times in the car? Did you fight with your brothers and your sisters?
Occasionally we would fight. I was the youngest of three, so I always lost. So it was very hard. And I had the
Yeah.
middle seat. So if my older brother fought with my older sister, then I was stuck in the center.
Not fun.
Not fun at all. But we hardly ever fought, and I would say the road trips were a lot of fun
Yeah.
overall.
Yeah, I took a lot of road trips with my family. I remember them very fondly. So Trey, lots of people might want to know when is the best time to visit the United States season-wise. What would you recommend to somebody that might go to America?
Definitely the best time is in the fall part of the year, end of August through end of November, beginning of December. The reason why is because the weather is beautiful. You have blue skies almost every day. There's not too much rain, um, no tornadoes or hurricanes that come through, and the weather is just generally cool and pleasant. On top of that, you have the amazing food that's associated with the fall months and the holidays that also take place then. For example, Halloween, you go door to door trick or treating, you receive a lot of candy. There's also Thanksgiving, where many families cook the traditional turkey. Some other families have chop suey, what have you. And there's also the tofu turkey.
Tofu turkey.
Yeah, tofu turkey.
If you had tofu turkey
I've never
before?
had a tofu turkey, but I've only heard about it. I went to a liberal arts college where there are very few meat eaters, so I've
Oh.
always heard about it. Also in the fall, it's a great time to visit the outdoors in the United States. You have the fall foliage, especially if you're in the New England states, um, where the mountains are just on fire with oranges and yellows.
Mm. Yeah, it's nice. Nice time of year.
Yeah.
Okay. And any other season you think is a good time to visit? So the fall is really good.
I think the fall's great. Um, it also depends on a personal preference. If one really likes the summer atmosphere, then of course, going to um, New York or the West Coast in the summertime is great because you can visit the beaches. If you like skiing, then of course winter's great if you go to any of the Rocky Mountain states, Colorado, for example. You can really take advantage of the snow out there. Great powder.
Hmm. Have you traveled much in the United States?
Ever since I was a child, I'd get in the car and travel with my parents. We drive from Oklahoma to New York or down south to the North Pacific Northwest. Almost every single state. Maybe five, 6 states I haven't visited.
Hmm. Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Trey.
Thank you.
Eukarya, you are into drama, so I thought we would talk about Shakespeare. First
Cool.
of all, who is Shakespeare?
Well, Shakespeare is one of the most famous playwrights of the world. He was born in 1564 in Stratford-on-Avon in England, which is a really pretty town. And he opened the Globe Theatre in London, I think, at some stage. But the main thing why Shakespeare is so famous is he had a really short life back in those days. To make it to 40 was considered old age. But in his relatively short life, he produced an enormous body of work. Um, he produced historical plays, tragedies, comedies, poetry, sonnets. So he was an extraordinarily prolific writer. And I think the reason that he's so famous even today is because the themes he chose for most of his work were universal. They're themes that touch us whether we speak English, whether we speak Spanish or Russian, whether we're in the 21st century or in the 16th century. They're themes that are eternal and they concern humanity and have concerned humanity for such a long time.
Hmm. Yeah. How much of the English has changed since the original Shakespeare to the Shakespeare we have today? I mean, the English we have today.
Well, if Shakespeare suddenly appeared in the 21st century, he would be almost illiterate because back in those days, English had a vocabulary of about 150,000 words,
Mm.
whereas now the vocabulary of English is one of the highest in the world. I think 300,000 now, probably more. So Shakespeare wouldn't be able to make himself understood if he came back today. So in a way, the vocabulary he's using is really easy. But of course, English has changed from that era, from Middle English until contemporary English keeps changing. Even if you talk to your grandparents, well, not just English, all languages change and develop over time. So even if you talk to your grandparents, they're going to use a slightly different variety of the language you're speaking in.
But wait a minute, you're saying that his English was easy. When I read it, it doesn't seem easy. It seems pretty tough.
Well, that's because the English was used in a different way.
Mm.
So some words and some grammatical structures are no longer in English. They've fallen out of usage, except when we read stuff like Shakespeare. And then for us, it seems almost like a foreign language because we don't have these grammar structures anymore, and we don't use English in this way anymore.
Mm. Okay, thanks. Eukarya, why don't we talk about what is our favorite Shakespeare plays, and actually, what is the story about?
Okay. I love the story of Romeo and Juliet. I know, I'm a girl. Um, which is a tragedy. It's about a boy and a girl who fall in love, but unfortunately, their families are sworn enemies of each other, and it ends up with both of them killing themselves. So it's quite a sad play.
So that's a tragedy, right?
That's a tragedy. I also like Hamlet. Hamlet, the play opens and we see Hamlet talking to the ghost of his father, and the ghost explains to Hamlet that he was killed by his brother, who has now become Hamlet's stepfather because he married Hamlet's mother. So Hamlet has to avenge his father by killing his stepfather slash uncle. And Hamlet procrastinates throughout the play. He keeps on putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And at the end, because he's put it off, the situation just gets worse and worse and worse. And the reason I like Hamlet is I'm exactly the same. I procrastinate. If I don't want to do something, for example, if I don't want to correct homework, my apartment gets cleaned, my car gets cleaned, I clean out the computer. I'm like Hamlet. But eventually I do correct the homework.
You're not going to go kill your uncle or anything.
No, no.
All right, just checking.
No, nothing like that. I could kill some of the journals that I get sometimes, but the homework. But I also love Shakespeare's comedies because they have this timeless quality. They're funny now and they're funny to many different cultures, even though humor is a culturally related issue. But I think Shakespearean comedy, like, they are accessible to all. I like The Taming of the Shrew, and
That's good.
I don't know if you remember an American soap opera called Moonlighting
Yeah.
with Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd, and they did a version of The Taming of the Shrew. And I saw it when I was a child, and I thought, wow, that's a really funny story for that particular soap opera. And then when I went to junior high school and senior high school, I realized that, oh, it's a Shakespeare play. So I really like that. I really like A Midsummer's Night's Dream. I'm not sure if I can tell the story anymore. And I remember in school I had to study the sonnets, and I really liked them, which surprised me because I'm not a big poetry person.
Mm.
But I really found Shakespeare accessible.